Subinder, are you able to have a view of the video?
I'm looking. No.
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 Let me become the presenter for a second. Let me check.
Ankita, I can see your screen.
Same here.
Ankita,
Yeah,
your screen
but
is showing for
the
everyone.
thing is, okay, again, the video is not there.
Shit.
Just give me a second. Subinder, can you, in this, I also have a option of sharing the YouTube link. Let me just check because, hi audience, just give us 2-3 more minutes because the session will start at 2:30. So it is 2:28. So we will begin the session in next 2 minutes. All right, just a second. No, now I won't be able to do much because the session is in progress, Subinder.
The video is there in the videos.
Yeah, it is there.
But somehow it's not showing over here. That's okay. I'll just drop back.
Because...
I'll just log out and come back in, and then you make me the presenter.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ankita,
okay, Subinder.
Yeah,
so I'm giving you the presenter rights. Yeah.
Yeah. No.
The video is not there.
Not there.
Okay.
Murphy's Law.
Subinder, why don't you just that video? I'm sure it's there with you. I know that we won't be able to hear the sound, but can we just play that?
But would that create the experience we need?
Yeah, that's... So, what do you suggest, Subinder?
Yeah, I'm just thinking, should we?
Okay.
I think everyone can hear us, right?
Yes.
So, hi everyone. We're having some technical difficulties here. Something we tested, but somehow it's not available right now. Which means a lot of what we had planned for the session is somehow not So we're wondering, should we go ahead with this? Ankita, can we restart the whole thing? I know there's a lot of people who've logged in and
Subinder, then because if I will log out, then the session will end. And then to re-log in, it will require a new registration ID, which means require a new link.
Okay, so that is not an option.
So let's start, and maybe I can just ask my IT person if that person can also log in, and maybe we can get some help.
Sure.
Maybe there's some way out. I'm just calling one of the person, and maybe you can just start, and let's just wait for that video for about. Just give me 5 minutes, Subinder. Let me just try.
Okay.
I'm also making you a host if that works. I've just made you the organizer, Subinder. Can you just check now? Is the video showing?
The number you. So I'm just projecting it from here, but the audio will not come.
So and I'll rejoin. Yeah.
Okay. So hi everyone. We're having some technical difficulty over here, which means that okay, the problem is that we have a fairly decent number of videos that I wanted to show, and the way we have it right now, the audio for those videos will not come through. So it's something which we had working, but somehow last minute Murphy's Law. So what I'll do is I'll get started. In the meantime, we are trying to get some technical help, to see if we can find a fix for this problem, right? So this session, Murphy never leaves us, right? Okay, this session, as you know, is all about storytelling, and specifically within storytelling, it's about it's about the what, so when I talk to people, the question I most often get is, what is storytelling? Why is it important? So what is storytelling? That's a question I'll answer. Why is it important to us, especially as techies, as people in the IT BPO space? And how do you practice it, right? And I will crystallize it as 7 habits finally. Okay, so and as in the tradition of storytelling, I'll not tell you, I'll show you, right? And I'll show you through a lot of videos if we can get the audio working for those videos. Okay, so I'm just going to get started over here. Okay, I'm going to start with this video of this video from Google. I think most of you would have seen this before. This beautiful video, and this is a great story And by the end of the session, you should have seen what makes this so powerful, right? What makes this so powerful? What are the learnings from this? Is what you would have got by the end of it. But first, let's just enjoy this video, and I hope you can hear the audio. But let's just try this. But thankfully, we have subtitles, so at least you can see what they are saying.
Subinder, can we just try once if you can turn off your webcam once?
Done.
And can you try again, Subinder? That show screen, that option.
So I don't see the video there.
Okay, Madhur, it's not there.
Okay, so Ankita, shall we proceed then?
Yeah, Subinder, we shall proceed further.
Okay, so guys, like I said, by the end of this session, I would have walked through what makes this video of this story so good. Let me start, however, with the story of Anu. So Anu, who runs this runs a startup called sorry, I'm just jumping around. So she runs a startup called Speaker City, and she attended one of these storytelling workshops. And after 3 days of that workshop, I got this mail from her, and this was that, I've been applying the storytelling principle to my sales, and it's working very well because I'm selling the summer program and people are enrolling. And she went on to add, and this is particularly important to me since in the past I've not been able to sell this. And uh, and of course, I was so curious to see what uh, what she had written that worked so well. And I'm sure you would all like to see that as well. Okay, but before I show you that, let me show you the original mailer that she'd used, which for some reason didn't work. Okay, and this is the original mailer. Uh, okay, now if you look at it, and when I first saw this, it's like, this doesn't look bad at all. But she's talking about the product. She's talking about the benefits. She's talking about, uh, you know, what customer experience will be there in the product, in the workshop. Why is it not working? And usually when I show this to people, I mean, the only point I really get is maybe it's too wordy. Maybe it's too much text. However, the interesting thing is that the final version is actually the same amount of text as this one. So it's not really the quantity of text that made a difference. So why is it that this mailer didn't really do the job, and how did she fix it? Okay. Now, in order to understand that, I'll just give you a quick framework. I know a lot of you are in sales. In fact, all of you are in sales in some way, shape, or form. You're selling ideas. You're selling some concept, some commitment, even if you're not selling products for money. Now, in any sale, there are three elements involved. Okay. The first one is, okay, there are three closures that I like to say. Any sale requires three closures. The first one is you need to close on the mind. Okay, the mind is when you look at the product features, you look at the product quality, you look at the tech stack, you look at um, the elements which constitute the product, the logic part of it. The second is the wallet closure. The wallet is when you look at the benefits, the ROI, the budgets, right? Even if no money is involved, you do want to look at, well, what would it take and what do I gain from it, right? And typically, we're very good at these two. We're very good at creating the arguments which address the features of the product or the offering. Very good at addressing the benefits or the ROI of the offering. However, there is a third part. Okay, and the third part is the heart. Okay, and it's actually the most difficult part and the most critical part. Okay, now reality is that we don't know how to deal with the heart. Okay, because we don't know how to do it in a structured way. Okay, so let's just see how Anu addressed that part in the revised mailer. Okay? If you notice, the first mail that she used was very good at addressing the mind and the wallet, but it kind of missed the heart. Okay, but when you look at the revised mail, it starts out with the story of a parent. Now, anybody here who is a parent can immediately relate to the first one. We never have enough time to spend with our kids. We always wish we had more time. Okay? And we always want to be able to give our kids an experience they'll always remember. That's how she ended the mail, right? So when you look at the first and the last line, it goes straight to the heart. once you've touched the heart, then the mind is much more receptive, and then you can address the other concerns of your audience, right? So this is where touching the heart is where storytelling comes in, and this is typically something that we are as a community, as professionals, we're generally very weak at. We're very good at the logical part of things. We're very good at the mind. We're very good at the financial part of things, at the benefits and ROI. But when it comes to touching hearts, it's something that we are not taught. We don't know, and some of us who do it very well would do it through. It's more experiential. It's more through learning through experience, not in a systematic way. Okay, and the whole idea of storytelling is to make it all systematic and replicable. Okay, so now that we understand what storytelling is, why it's important, we'll look at the how part of it. And you've seen a glimpse over here. You've seen how Anu applied it. You've seen a bit of that in the video I showed. Now, the how part, I'll bring out the 7 core principles, or the 7 habits. The first one is, okay, now, like any good thing, there will be a quiz. So please take notes. There will be a question, there'll be a quiz at the end. Okay. Now, the first habit of good storytellers is they are sense makers. What does it really mean? What does it mean when I say sense makers? So there's a lot of very complicated stuff all around us. There are complicated concepts, there are complicated technologies, there are complicated processes all around us. Most of us cannot understand a lot of the stuff that we encounter in our daily lives. Okay. We need sense makers to help us understand what those are. Okay? And good storytellers are sense makers. How do they do this? So I'm going to show it in the form of a video. And again, we don't have audio, so let's just try again. Yeah. No, we still don't have audio. Okay, so this is a beautiful ad by Slack. So what I'll do is at the end, I'll make all the links to all these videos available so that you can actually watch them and take away all the lessons from these. And these are a lot of fun, so a lot of fun videos. I think you'll have a blast watching them.
So Binta, is there any link to this deck so that I can share? We can share on the chat window to them so that they can probably see it on standalone basis.
Link to the deck you're saying, or the video?
Video links so that they can view it like individually.
Let me just check.
Sure. So that if it is running over here in parallel, they can open and they can also have a look.
No. So I just need a minute. I'll look up the link for these videos. Okay. While I'll do that in the background. Let me just start the next one. So this is about this is another storytelling master, Elon Musk, who's who's trying to explain what. So basically, he's trying to address the issue of solar power, and a very common question that we get is about. About how much area would you need to be able to create enough solar power, right? And look at how he addresses that. So let me run that, and in the meantime, I'll be looking at the video links. It's Ankita, I'm not able to. Okay, so let me do this. Let me just switch around. I don't think it's any point with the videos. Without the audio, I don't think they really. So guys, I'm going to switch to a different thing. I'll just go through the 7 habits, and let me just talk through them. Okay. Okay. So the 7 habits, first one I touched upon, they are sense makers. So the idea is that there are some concepts which are not immediately obvious, and what storytellers do is make them understood by the audience. And the way they do that is they relate them to concepts which are already understood, which are already familiar to the audience. So the example, of Elon Musk is what he's able to do is, so he's talking about how you're going to power all of the US using solar power. They say, okay, one of the common questions or concerns is, well, how much solar energy do we need, and then how many solar panels do we need? And what it shows is that the area that you need, uh, all the solar panels put together to power all of the US, the area that you need is a very small fraction of the state of Texas, right? So it's really such a small area that it should not be a concern at all, right? And then within that, then the other concern is, well, we need batteries as well, right? Because you need solar power at night or when the sun is not shining. So how many batteries do you need? Well, the batteries is another small part of that. He shows us by a red dot, right, which is barely visible. So when you look at the map of the US, well, you can hardly see the little pixel which you need for all of the panels, and then a little dot within that is the batteries. And so he's able to bring home that you hardly need any space at all, right? Suddenly you're able to make sense of it. Okay? Slack shows, so it's a difficult application to understand. Why do I need it, right? And so they tell a beautiful story of how you're able to do things which you were not able to do before. So they help you, the audience, make sense uh, in terms that you can understand and relate to. The second habit is my favorite. Yeah. They seek not to impress but to inspire. Now, this is a very common mistake. In fact, I used to think this, that as salespeople, you have to impress your audience first. If they're not impressed, why would they listen to me? Why would they buy from me? And actually, that's just not true. In fact, most of us get turned off when somebody is trying to impress us, right? Yet we, yet you look at some of the sales pitches, you look at, the messages that come out of most organizations, they're designed to impress. They talk about how great I am, what all we've done, here are our credentials, here are our awards. Who cares? What your audience wants is inspiration, right? And inspiration comes from relating it to their needs. So you have to first connect with your audience, connect with their dreams, and I'll talk about that more in one of the following habits. But then seek to inspire your audience to become greater, your audience to be able to do more than you do today. Okay? And so I'll share there's a lot of bad examples, and even from really good companies. Um, and there are some great examples um, of stories or messages which seek to inspire, which seek to make the audience do more than they think they're capable of. Right? And that's what great storytellers. That's what great leaders do. Right? Great leaders are storytellers as well. Next is they focus on the emotional benefit. Now we got a sense of this when I was talking about Anu's mail earlier. Right? We all need three touch points. We all need three benefits. We need the intellectual benefit, we need the ROI or the wallet benefit, but most of all, we need the emotional benefit. And that is what storytellers deliver, right? And there's some very good examples of that. Again, what I'll do is at the end of it, I will share links to all these videos, so you're able to kind of connect them. They practice empathy. Okay, now empathy is a very interesting subject. In fact, we did a whole session on empathy, and again, there's a previous NASSCOM session we did on how to develop empathy, especially for technical folks. But empathy is widely misunderstood, because most people think of empathy as sympathizing, or empathy as commiserating. I feel your pain. That's a very weak form of empathy. The strong form of empathy, which is what storytellers do, is to understand your dreams, understand your aspirations, right? And once you understand them, then you can help them get there, right? So the mistake in empathy is to either short circuit that one, or think of it as understanding their pain. The pain is a part of it, but it's more about helping them achieve their dream. Okay. Next is they show us our dreams and our struggles. Now, most of the sales situations, most sales messages, we tend to jump to, here's a product, or here's the problem we're solving, here's a solution. However, all of us aspire for something bigger, right? We all have certain dreams. We're all doing things to achieve something bigger. Okay? What is inspiring is not saving a little bit of money. What's inspiring is not saving a little bit of time. What's inspiring is, what is it that I can do that I could not do before? What is it that I can create that was not possible before? Right? And that is what great storytellers do. They help us understand our dreams. We may already understand them, but not be able to articulate them very well. They help us, lay them out and understand them in a much more explicit way. And finally, they leverage multiple channels. And by multiple channels, I mean, it's not just about words, it's about body language, right? It's about tone of voice, of course. But increasingly now that we are not in front of customers, like this session, we would have wanted to do in person, but we're not able to. Your sales calls, you want to do in person, but that's increasingly, that's nowadays next to impossible, and it's going to remain difficult. They leverage the visual medium. So, videos are a very powerful way of doing it. The big mistake that I see here is most, most people, when they approach videos, they think of videos as a canned PowerPoint. So they're able to they take a PowerPoint and can it as a video. No, I think we need to look at a video as a mini movie, right? When you watch a movie, you get lost in it. When you watch a movie, it's you can feel that emotion, you can feel that inspiration, you remember it always. Well, that's the experience you want to give your audience, right? That's the experience storytellers give their audience, and they do that through great stories, and they do that through great media. So the videos that the great storytellers produce are actually are little movies. Okay, and again, I'll share the examples, some beautiful examples of stories that you get lost in, and they just happen to be about the product or about the idea that you're pushing. Okay. Okay, let's get into questions. In the meantime, I'll see if we can also share some of the videos so you're able to get those. But let's open it up for questions, Ankita.
Sure, Subinder. So there's this question by Bhaskar. He's asking, what is the difference between fourth and the fifth habit?
So the fourth is empathy, and you make it about the audience. Okay, so empathy is about understanding the audience, and the fifth one is to, when you tell the story, it should be about the audience. So absolutely, they're connected. All of the 7 habits are connected. Okay, the difference is that the one is about listening, the other is about telling the story. And when you tell the story, it has to be told in terms of the audience, not in terms of the product, right? So the big mistake would be to keep talking about the product, the features, the benefits, the ROI, how it's going to get used. The best stories are about what the audience's actual requirement is, their dreams are, and what is their struggle, and how does the product help them overcome that hurdle to achieve what they want to be. Okay, so empathy is about listening. The fifth one is about telling your story. Okay, next question, please.
All right. Next question is by Shalini. She's asking, how vulnerable can you get when you are sharing dreams or aspirations? And should you look at curating the audience you need upfront? Is that part of creating the overall story?
Okay, so I mean, vulnerability. Okay, so vulnerability, to my mind, is more like empathy. Okay, which is so the thing is, you have to understand what your audience's struggles or their shortcomings might be, right? And then what you got to do is you know through empathy is when you say I understand, right? And the best way to show empathy is to say I've been in your shoes. It doesn't necessarily have to be the case, but if you if you can show that, then that's the best way to build empathy, right? So that's where the vulnerability part comes in. I don't think you should be building vulnerability just for the sake of showing you're vulnerable. It makes sense only if it is related to what your audience might also relate. Okay, so that's point number one. Point number two is about curation. So curation, I think I would rephrase that question. I don't think that's the right question to be asking. You don't have a choice to curate, right? You do have a choice to target your message to a certain audience. So you have to make sure that your messages are targeted to a certain audience, right? And in case you have an audience which is broader than what you can choose, you have to find out what's common, right? So that's part of your research or part of your thinking. So it's a combination of targeting and finding the right commonality. So like for example, for this session, we know that it's a NASSCOM audience. It is people with the IT BPO product industry, right? But that's still a very, very broad audience. And I know there are people who come in from outside of this community as well. Now, so in some sense, we've curated in the sense that we are addressing the IT BPO, product community. And if there's people who are outside of this audience as of this community, as I've seen in some of the previous sessions, so be it, but then we're not necessarily targeting our messages to them, right? But even within this community, it's such a broad community that you really have to understand the common ground, right? um, so there is still a fair amount of broad strokes that you have to understand your audience and relate to. I hope that was I answered the question. If not, please come back, else we'll go to the next question.
Sure, Subinder. The next question is by Natarajan. He's saying how to tell service and product story differently.
So how to tell service and product stories differently? Actually, there is not that much of a difference. Okay, the difference is only in some details. In it depends on what you're offering them, right? So in most cases, even when you're selling services today, what the customer is looking for is a solution. They're not looking for technical capabilities. Though they definitely want to know that, but before you go there, they want to be convinced about that you're able to offer them a solution. So there is some detail that is different. Obviously, your a product means you have a much more fixed offering and much more deep offering than as a services. You're a little more broad. You can configure it a lot more for that particular audience. But the in terms of the being able to understand the audience, in terms of being able to relate it to their particular objectives, that doesn't change. Okay, it's only in the implementation details that there is a difference between a product story and a services story. Okay, I think gone are the days where, as a services provider, you could sell to pretty much everybody and go with a very generic, very generic story and say, take service from me. Just tell me what you want and I'll do it for you. That doesn't work anymore. Next question, please.
Next question. Okay, Tushar is asking, how do you test out these stories?
Just like everything else, you test it out with audiences, and I strongly encourage you. You build your story, you test it with a friendly audience first. You test it with a small audience, just like you test a product, right? You test it with a small group first, and then once it's resonating, that's when you expand it and keep listening, keep refining. So really no difference in how you test anything else. Right?
All right. Thanks for the answers, Subinder.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Okay. The next question is by Raj Shekhar. He's saying, what are the tips to tell a story in really a short time, maybe in 2 to 3 minutes?
Sorry, come again. What are the tips for?
What are the tips to tell a story in really a short time,
Okay.
maybe in 2 to 3 minutes?
Sure. So in fact, there's a module I do for that. So one thing is, I have a blog on that, a blog post. If you go to storyproc.com, you can find the link from there. There's a blog post I've done specifically on this question: how to tell a short story, tell a story within 2 minutes. I'll give you the highlights of that very quickly over here. There are 3 essential elements to a story. There has to be an objective, there has to be a constraint, and there has to be a resolution to that constraint. So you have to be able to say, I need to, or your audience wants to open up a new market. In order to open up a new market, they need a certain capability which they don't have today, right? That's your constraint. Therefore, the resolution is you need to you need a product which will help you solve that constraint. This is how you bring your product in. That's also how you relate it right to their aspirations. So instead of saying, hey, I've got this product, it's a great product, here are the features, here's what it can all do, how it's better than competition. No. Start with what the customer's objective is, right? So one line, you could say that, so they say, yes, this is my objective. Then you say, in order to do that, this is a big constraint. And if they've at all thought about their goals, they know that that is a constraint, so they will say yes. Now they're all eager to listen to what you have to say. That's when you bring in your solution. You give a highlight. So resist the temptation of going into how great, how beautiful, how complex your solution is. right? At this point, the customer only wants to know, yes, your solution can solve their problem, right? That will lead to a much bigger discussion. Then they want to know, right? It's their desire to know, not just your desire to tell them. Okay, and you can do this not just 2 minutes. You can do this in 30 seconds. Next question, please.
All right, thanks, Subinder. The next question is by Sanjeev. He's saying it was mentioned that knowing the heart of the individual or the audience is key. How do we gauge the heart?
Okay, so there, what I would suggest is, we've done a whole session on this, on empathy. There's a lot of research required, guys. It's not easy. You have to literally put yourself in the customer's shoes, like they say. But there is a systematic way of doing this, right? So what the webinar. So I'll share that link on that for that webinar. Or Ankita, you could do that. The last webinar on empathy,
Sure.
where we actually talked about a script, a structured way of getting to knowing the customer's heart. Okay. And it's a long session. I mean, it's a deep topic. I think it's best addressed by that session. Okay. Next question, please.
All right. Thanks, Subinder. Next question is by Arpan. What do you think that the storyteller person should be more creative person?
It definitely helps, but it's not required. So, the thing is, storytelling requires three things. It requires an understanding of your customer, of your audience. It requires it requires some creativity, yes, and it requires the good habits. So the 7 habits that I talked about, actually, even if you're creative, but you end up like seeking to impress, for example, rather than to inspire, then the story will fall flat, right? So it requires a certain amount of discipline. Now the good and requires passion. So the part which the technical people are very good at is the passion. A lot of techies are very good at being, they're so passionate about the product, they're so passionate about the problem that they're solving, that they can actually be very good storytellers. Where they struggle usually is in they get too lost in the product, not knowing enough about the customer. That's a discipline issue, and then they need a structure, and that's what I've been trying to do, right? So what we're trying to do is close that gap in terms of follow this process, follow the structure, and you will get to a good story even without the creativity. And then the creativity becomes the cherry on the cake. Okay. So if you have a good cake and you put a cherry on it, it's great, right? It looks good, it tastes good. But if you have a bad cake, a cherry will not fix it, right? So what I'm talking about here is will help you create a great cake. After that, creativity will help you, put a good cherry on it. Okay? So it's not absolutely essential, but it definitely helps a lot. Next, please.
All right. Thanks, Subinder. The next question is by Anupam. He's saying, does B2B marketing need storytelling? If yes, which topics gain the most engagements?
So first one is easy. Absolutely. Okay. It absolutely needs storytelling. Which topics? So, ultimately in B2B also, you're talking to individuals, right? And what you have to do is relate it back to what they are trying to achieve as individuals, as an organization. Okay, so the part which I always say is, yes, there are some generics that all organizations need. They all need more efficiency, right? They all need more customers. they all need more customer satisfaction, right? So there are some generics that all organization needs, but every organization is different also, and people within those organizations also have personal aspirations. So some organizations are trying to, you know, maybe gain market share. Some organizations have an objective to create a specific impact or create a specific change, right? If you understand that, then when you connect your product to that priority, so you know, the short way of putting that is understand your customers' priorities beyond the money aspects. Okay, money doesn't inspire. Okay, there are priorities which go beyond the strategic priorities which go beyond money. What are those priorities? And if you can connect your product to those priorities in the form of a story, that's when you really get inspiring action. Okay? Usually your product is part of a much larger plan on the customer side, right? And of course, if you don't show anything more, they will only talk about price. There's nothing else to talk about. But if you show them how they're able to achieve their larger vision, then you know, the focus shifts from things like price to things like, well, how can we get more value out of it? Next question, please.
All right. The next question is by Ahmed. He's saying, how do you connect storytelling with B2B finance audience, as they usually turn out to be the most on numbers?
Yeah. So, you know, again, I'll say, first of all, you know, you can't get away from numbers. So let me not for a moment say that you can get away from numbers, but numbers is something which should come at the end, not at the beginning. It's after you establish your value, right? So it's in the establishing the value is where storytelling comes in, which is all about how does it help them achieve their strategic objectives, right? And there are I mean, there's a cliched example I'll give, right? And there's videos you can see I'm pasting them in the chat window, some of the links as I'm looking them up. There are you know, videos which talk about, you know, how you can connect it to their priorities. And very often, if you're talking about their priorities, you know, the price becomes such a small factor in that you know, that the desire starts to take over. And you would see that in your own experience, right? When you want something really badly, it doesn't matter what it costs, right? So cliched example I'll give you, right? So let's say, you know, the cliched example is, what is the price of a glass of water? Well, depends, right? It depends on how badly do you want it right now. And I may not want to pay even a rupee for it in a certain situation, but in a certain situation, you know, you can charge me 1,000, 10,000 if I'm thirsty enough, right? So it really depends on the context, right? So I know it's not a very good example because in a business situation, but you know, in a business situation, very often you will be able to find there are needs which and of course, if you have a commoditized offering, this doesn't work, right? If your offering can be matched by 20 other people, which is exactly the same offering, you have to find that specific differentiator. And again, I'll give examples of how do you highlight that differentiator by making it about the customer. You know, Slack is another very good example. There's so many tools like that, yet it is preferred by so many customers over other, you know, tens of other tools which are practically equivalent to it, right? So it's all about positioning and storytelling. And then finance is important always, but what we want to do is you know, establish the desire before you have the finance discussion, and B, take the focus away from the money to the value. Okay? That's what we do with storytelling. Okay, next question, please.
All right. The next question is by Vishnu. He's saying, which is the most essential quality that separates storyteller with great storyteller?
What quality is differentiates between a storyteller and a great storyteller? Okay, let's talk in the, there can be so many answers to this, but let's talk in the context of uh, of our industry, of technical solutions. I think the biggest difference is the great storyteller seeks to inspire, whereas an ordinary one seeks to impress. I think that is a big difference. Okay, so a good storyteller might still get away with, but they're still trying to say how good my product is. A great storyteller might not even, or might bring in the product very, very incidentally, but they leave the customer so inspired that they absolutely want the product after that. Okay? That to me is the biggest difference. Okay, next question, please.
All right. The next question is, when we intend to tell stories for B2B audience, how effectively we can use these 7 principles, or should we focus to apply any specific principle?
No, so like I said, this is a continuum. This is not like very very separate 7 principles. So yeah, they all work together. I don't think you can say that I'll leave out empathy and therefore understanding my audience and still be able to tell a good story, because a story is about the audience, right? And you cannot not make it about the audience and still be able to talk about their hearts, their aspirations. So these are all kind of one continuum, really, right? So I don't think you can pick and choose.
All right. The next question is Subinder by again Bhaskar. Sometimes the story is so impactful that I forget the product. How do we ensure that there is product recall?
Okay, so the thing is, there are 2 ways you bring in your product. Okay, and in fact, I'm just pasting a video right now, while I answer this question about how the I mean, it really talks about it's all about the customer, but the product is nicely weaved into this. So the 2 ways that you bring in the product, uh, one is you bring in the product as a superpower for the customer to help them achieve their goals. Okay, and that's what you show in this video, and the next one I'll paste. Um, this is by Salesforce. Salesforce does a great job of telling. And I'm just going to paste it over here. Make it about the okay. I've just pasted a YouTube link for the video. The second way to do it is you place the product and associate it with the quality that your customer desires. So the 2 examples of this I'll give you. You would have seen. One is if you go back and watch some of the original Apple ads. The famous one where they launched the Mac. The product didn't even show up in the video at all, right? And it's considered to be an iconic, one of the best videos put out by Apple, right? That's what put Steve Jobs out there as a fabulous marketer. It established him. The video, it has Mahatma Gandhi, it has Einstein, it has so many other personalities that we all look up to, and it says, Apple. That's it. It doesn't, and it says if they were computer users, they would have been using a Mac. That's it. It doesn't talk about the product at all. The other one is, you've all watched a James Bond movie, right? Well, guess what happens? in an action sequence, you see he's wearing a Rolex watch, right? Even the brand is never mentioned. You just see him wearing it, right? The sales of Rolex go up every time a new movie comes out. So it's the two ways. One is you position your product as a superpower, like Salesforce does, for the customer to help achieve. So every customer is a hero. Every superhero deserves a superpower. Let your product be that superpower. That's way number one to do it. Number two is position your product and associate it with the hero that your audience aspires to be. Next question, please.
Sure. The next question is, on a day-to-day basis, how can we use stories to inspire our teams?
So the same principles apply. I mean, I don't think there's any major difference. Of course, the points that you bring out, the stories that you tell, don't change. And it starts with empathy. You have to understand what they're looking for, and they all want to be inspired. The bad managers keep talking about compensation and time off and benefits, and that cool TT table in the room outside. The great managers talk about inspiration. The great managers talk about how much impact you're creating, what great work we're doing, right? What positive change we're bringing into the world. Now, if you notice, actually, some of the greatest teams were not really the best paid ones, right? And even if at the end of it they got the rewards, and they should at the end, but it's not about money, it's not about benefits. It's really about what positive change you're bringing in the world. It's about inspiration. That's what great managers do, and the best way to inspire is to tell stories. So one very good technique for telling a story, inspiring as managers, is you talk about a story of the future. You talk about, this is the world we are building, right? This is the positive change we're bringing in the world. If you're able to tell that story effectively, you will get missionaries. What is the difference between a missionary and a mercenary? You would have heard that, right? Mercenary comes for money, a missionary comes for the mission. But you will not get missionaries unless there is a mission. So your job is to create a mission and tell it as a story. So a great inspiring story is a story of the future, right? A great inspiring story is a story of a customer. In fact, I'm gonna paste a story right now, which is such a great, inspiring story about a mission, about educating girl children, and especially from underprivileged backgrounds, and helping them achieve their dreams. Right? Such an inspiring story. Now, if anybody who's working on that product has got to be inspired by it, right? And so your jobs as managers is to be able to tell those stories to your teams on a regular basis, right? Invest in creating those stories. Okay, I'm pasting it right now. Next question, please.
Yeah. The next question is, how can we ensure we relate to maximum audience on their dreams and struggle path? Is it always good to have interactions with the audience while narrating the story?
It's okay. So there is no one answer to this. Okay. But it's great to be able to have interaction while you're narrating the story, and that's why face-to-face works so well. But very often you don't have the choice, and if it's a large audience, again, it's not possible. So you do your research up front, right? And it goes back to a question which came earlier about how do you test your stories? So you do your research beforehand, you test your stories, and so as you go to a larger and larger audience, go with a previously tested story. Okay. So the thing is, yeah, you need to do your research beforehand, and you need to evolve your story every time you deal with an audience. And by the way, this is true for any product as well. Next question, please.
Subinder, can we have this one as the last question for the session?
Okay. Okay.
So the last question is by Gitanjali. How to train your salespeople for this, for storytelling, as everyone is not good with storytelling techniques?
So, I mean, training. So, I've been conducting some training as well. I know there are other people or other resources in the market who do that. So there are resources available for training. There's some online sessions as well, though I think they're not as effective. I mean, it's just like anything else. There are resources. There are self-learning resources. There are coaching. There's online. There's books that you can all use to learn. And it's a very core skill. It's a very core skill. It's not something that you learn in a day. So you have to invest and persist with it. I think all great organizations have been investing in storytelling in various ways, and I personally believe a lot more has to be done. Okay, so it's great that you're thinking about it. Try out with some maybe self-learning sessions and then take it from there.
All right. Thank you, Subinder. Thank you so much for your time and efforts. And I'm really very sorry from NASSCOM's behalf that for this technical glitch and we couldn't play the video. But I'll ensure you that in future we don't face this, and I'll discuss everything with my team internally. So I'm really sorry for that. And for everyone,
let's understand. No, I think sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, please, Subinder, go ahead.
No, I'm saying, I'm actually, I'm sorry for the audience. Not, we could not share. And I can tell you, there's such fun videos. I still, after I've seen them multiple times, and I still enjoy watching them. So, we'll share some of the links. Some of them I've already shared, but we'll figure out a way to get those links to you, and hopefully you'll get a chance to watch them and enjoy them and learn from them.
Sure, Subinder. And for everyone whose questions we were unable to answer, please, you can get in touch with Subinder on LinkedIn. And I will meet all of you on 28th of May with another great session from the data science series. And for more details and to register, please visit NASSCOM, www.nasscom.in/events. Thank you, Subinder, and thank you everyone for your time.
Okay, thank you.